You were going to the playoffs pretty much every year with Oakland, and then you signed that big contract with the Giants. So you go from American League to the National League. You signed with the Giants. You didn't really move very far, but you signed a huge deal. Kind of take me back to your thoughts about signing with them, and then what was going through your mind after you signed that big contract.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything that we do in life goes back to what tools were we given growing up, right, from our parents or, whoever. And I didn't have a lot of tools to deal with, let's say, the ego kind of taking me out.
Right.
I was kind of raised in an environment learning that, I was special and different than the rest of the kids, which, is great in the moment to hear that as a kid. But I think you grow up and you believe that lie that, like, you don't really have this humility. And I think the humility really allows people to sustain great performance over many, many years. So I didn't have that early on. So I won the Cy Young, and I kind of was believing the hype, that people were loving me. It was all about me. And then, I signed a huge contract 7 years later. I just couldn't handle the attention, the pressure, without kind of blowing out. With my ego kind of blew out,
Did that come from your parents or like high school coaches?
I think it came from the parents. Yeah, I was raised in kind of a different spiritual upbringing, kind of based in Eastern religion, Eastern traditions, and it was all about, I can manifest my reality and create any circumstance I desire, if I have enough self-control and enough willpower. And so that's a great way to see life when things are good. But when things are bad, you end up blaming yourself for everything that's going on, and versus relying on something higher, some higher power, higher strength.
So you were,
yeah.
You were just really cocky. You win the Cy Young in your third year in the league. So you just thought you were kind of did you think you were the best pitcher in baseball at one point?
Yeah, I mean, cocky. I wouldn't say cocky. I would say it was an underlying feeling of superiority to other people. But if you ever met me at that time,
right.
But I wasn't like walking in disrespecting people. I wasn't disrespecting people. You know what I mean? You would have never known that. It was this very subtle undercurrent that eventually just took me out.
Okay. All right. So then you signed the big deal. What was the contract, Cakes, with the Giants again?
I don't have it in front of me.
It was like $127 million, I think, is what you signed for, right?
Yeah, 126, yeah.
Okay, and then you start having bad years. Your first year with the Giants in 2007, you were 11-13. Your ERA was like 4.5. The next year you were 10-17. ERA was over 5. And then I heard you talk about this. You guys go to the World Series in 10 against the Rangers, and Bochy left you off the postseason roster.
Yeah, he did. I mean, rightly so. I mean, I was definitely the fifth best pitcher in that 5-man rotation at that time. And so for me, what happened essentially internally, which is great writing a book, because I could never say this playing. I didn't want to seem vulnerable and weak, but now I'm realizing that, vulnerability is actually strength. So my perspective has really changed. But, for me, I started to see baseball really as just a vehicle to get me the approval that I needed from other people. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I was trying to get it from my dad growing up, and felt like I had to perform and get wins to get his approval and love. And I just kind of transferred that need onto people. So when that contract came in San Francisco, man, I was so desperate for approval and validating that contract that, I just kind of squeezed the life out of my own talent.
Were you enjoying baseball at that time?
No, I was miserable.
You hated it?
Absolutely miserable. Oh, yeah, completely.
But,
I mean, it didn't matter. I could go buy a Lamborghini, every week. It didn't matter.
You didn't even enjoy the money. You didn't even enjoy the money.
You can't. All I wanted to do was pitch well and be able to compete, but also to add, something to the team, to add, value to my team. And I couldn't do any of that. So Lamborghinis and mansions, none of that crap matters if you're just, you're actually not, the real stuff is not filling you up.
You actually rooted against the Giants, the team that you were playing for in the World Series.
So it's a little more complex than that, but really, I was making $18 million that year, I think, 18 or 19, and a lot more than any guy on the team. And of course, I didn't want to go home. I mean, I wanted to win a World Series my whole life, and I'm not going to go home and watch my team, do that. It was so odd. So, I kind of vouched to or, vied for a spot to just work out. And if someone gets hurt, insert me in. And, it's not like I was out there, wearing like, Braves and Phillies jerseys under my jersey. But,
right.
I was like, there was a part of me that was like, man, if they lose, then it proves they can't do it without me. And it proves to my ego that I'm still valuable to my team. I mean, I was just in the darkest place in my life, covered in shame, really just reaching for anything to validate, like I said, my ego.
Were you depressed?
Oh, yeah, depressed, anxious.
Were you taking meds? Were you taking meds for like antidepressant?
No, I was raised, with a family that was adamantly opposed to that kind of stuff. So again, I just, I was doing other stuff. I was smoking a lot of weed. I was like, drinking and doing stuff to just medicate myself. So, it wasn't prescription, but it was, the other kind of stuff. And
self-medicating.
Did you have a wife and kids? I assume at the time.
No.
You didn't?
I had just started dating the woman I ended up marrying and having kids with now, but
Okay.
we were just in those initial phases of dating. So yeah, I was just a complete wreck. I mean, really just mentally.
Wow.
Barry, we have a couple of Orioles fans in here. Poor bastards, root for that team. Chris Davis is a guy who is under contract for 3 more years and $17 million. If you could have a conversation with him about, fulfilling expectations, what would that be like? Because you've gone through it, and he's a guy that, is expected to go out and hit 40, 45 home runs. He's not doing it, but he's getting paid a ton of money by the team.
He's probably in the same mental state as you were.
Dude, yeah, man. I mean, I'm very passionate about this kind of thing. I mean, I guess, and mental health, I know, is really showing up lately, and it's important. And for me, man, that 2010 thing, it really just cracked my ego in half. It broke me as a man. And what I realized for the first time, and what I was able to admit, is I can't do this alone. I need a strength, right? So I've found, in the months following, I found this relationship with God. I found something else to live for besides the approval of the fans, or besides the approval of my teammates. And it allowed me to be liberated, from that cage I was in, so desperate all the time to please everybody in the Bay Area. And eventually it freed me up to contribute to a World Series in 2012. And so what I would tell Chris is, man, baseball cannot be your God. And I don't know where he's at spiritually, but, I was worshiping the game of baseball to define me every day. And that is an easy position to get into when you throw all this money and contracts at people.